talking about how to link our knowledge to creating backend applications. So now let's talk about strengthening some of our knowledge in whatever it's like. Technically, right now we're actually done with today's work, but I want to like give us examples to strengthen our knowledge when it comes to what JavaScript frameworks have done. For instance, let us go ahead and create something difficult. So let's say you want to create, okay, let me do that. Let's say you want to create trying to look for the best way to do this. So let's create a function that allows users, right, to input something on the console. So what am I saying? We're going to create a function that allows users to it's going to revolve around. I don't want to do anything front end at all. So now, for instance, I'm going to create a function that takes in a prompt from the user, right? Then after taking in that prompt, whatever the user writes automatically gets outputted in the function. So for instance, let's say the prompt we're going to be taking now is going to be enter your name, right? Then once we have enter your name, once you input it, once you input your name, there should be an alert message that says welcome to our website. Let's do something like that. So I'm going to say function should be what? Greetings, right? Now this greetings, once a user imputes their name to the prompt, what happens is that name gets outputted as an alert message. So I'm going to say, let username equals to prompt enter user name, right? Then in this place, I'm not going to have automatically, I'm going to say, okay, whatever username gets outputted, I'm not going to say alert welcome back to our website. Then I'm going to say, use my $sign to put in the person's username. I'm going to use a user name. Good. Now, then we're going to have what greetings as our final message. So now if you check it out, what are we going to have? Should have, so if I refresh and I see Paul, what do we have? Welcome back to our website, Paul. And if I refresh and I say, oh, David, welcome back to our website, David, Samuel. That was a mistake. So let's refresh Samuel. What's wrong? Samuel. Okay. Then we're gonna have last one, Tina. So as you can see, the same way of just creating functionality. So I don't want to actually take some of these things further because I don't want to give us like I want to like calm down and ease us into all of these things gradually. But now that is that about how to use puzzling, how to use functions and all of those things. So let me go to W3 schools to get more. Now, your functions can actually be written in another way. And this is not the only way you write functions. Now, one thing is that you will write functions. Now, the way we wrote functions before, by saying functions, then writing the function name, then this. Now, that's actually a very good way to write functions. But going forward as a developer, especially backend developer, in fact, front end also, you will not write functions that way forever, right? In fact, you got to get a particular point. So, okay, I think I need to start writing functions the ES6 way, which is what arrow functions. So, come here now, you should see arrow functions. What comes out? Now you should see arrow functions. trying to check out year 6 model. Where is it? Yeah, good. So where's year 6? I find it. Let me check for I think I saw JavaScript versions just now. I don't know why I'm not seeing it again. Sorry? Okay, I've seen it. JavaScript versions. Let's check ECMAScript 6 2015. Now, arrow functions. Very good. We're going to go to arrow functions. What does arrow functions? What do they do? Arrow functions is a short syntax for writing function expressions, right? And what do they eradicate? You do not need the function keyword, and you don't also need what? The return keyword. Now, what they just do is that what? They automatically eradicate the function expression. Now, for instance, of course, you've been writing functions like this before, right? Now, this is how you now write what? Your arrow function. So I can go ahead and say, oh, okay, to write my arrow function, let me rewrite this particular function another way, this one that is here. I can go ahead and say, okay, instead of doing that, I'm going to say const, right? My car. Let's say my car. What's wrong? Car, right? Equals to what? Then, since the function, I'm going to write it this way, then this. Then I can just go ahead and write whatever it is I want to write. So it has parameters, right? My parameters can be here. Can have first parameter is make. I have year, and I have what? Model. Right? Now the next thing is I can just go ahead and write my what? This dot what? Make equals to what? So let's say what? Now, as you can see, of course, it still works, right? But because I'll be having multiple, then it is now some to just add this there. Then I can also have what? Comma. Oh no, not this, comma. Then I can have another one, which is what? This dot what? Year equals to what? 1978. So, but now let me just remove this and use our normal curly braces. So now we can have what? This dot make, right, equals to what? What, right? We can also have, you know, we can also have this dot year equals to what? 1978. I'm going to make it 1978, right? Make it a number rather than a string. This dot model is going to be what? Because of Mustang. Now, as you can see, we did the same thing, but can you see the function keyword? No. But it's still the same thing as a function, although this can now be an object. And that is what your arrow function does for you. Arrow function helps you eradicate the use of that word function keyword. And it has other benefits. And what are the other benefits now? Arrow functions do not have their own this. They are well suited. Okay, let's keep this. Now, arrow functions are not hoisted. They must be defined before they are used. Now, let me explain what this is. Let me just go into hoisting. When we talk about hoisting in JavaScript, I told you something that JavaScript starts from where? Top straight down to the bottom, right? Now, when we now talk about hoisting allows something to be declared something to be defined before they are declared. I'll give an example. For instance, I can say, where's that function that I created? Yeah, let me go right here and call this out. So now this is the function, right? To be very good. Now, I can go ahead and take this function and place it up here. What have I just done? Please, I want you to tell me what I've just done. Check this. and tell me what I've just done. In your knowledge of functions, what have I just done? Before the function is what defined. But how is it supposed to be naturally? After. Now check it out if it works. Let's see if it works. Is it working? But does it make sense? Because naturally, functions should be what? Sorry, naturally, your JavaScript should be what? The normal way of what? Defining things top to bottom. But what is happening now is because I use the function keyword, what happened? It is now defining before. Do you get it now? But if I go ahead and do this same thing with my arrow function, so I'm going to do the simple arrow function. Const multiply equals to what? Then I'm going to have a comma b as my parameters. Oh, that's a mistake. Then my arrow function, of course. Then I'm going to say console.log, right? And I'm going to have a comma b, a times b. Now let me define it first. And I'm going to say multiply, then 10, 6. Now check what is going to give to you. What is it saying? Uncut reference error cannot access multiply before initialization. Now that's the difference between your what? Arrow function and what? Your normal function. Arrow function is strict in the sense that it does not allow you to call something that you've not initialized. So one thing about JavaScript is that, I was saying something before. I said sometimes you might be looking at something as negative, but in the real sense, it's actually helping you. You don't want your code to be loose. You want it to be what? Strict. You want it to quickly give you errors that, okay, you cannot do this thing. Because if you do this thing, it's going to, just like saying that you are, although people do it now, you are giving a particular child a name before he's giving birth, before you give birth to them. But it's possible, definitely. But let's use an olden days analogy whereby there is nothing like gender review, right? You don't know the gender. So you now give your child Paul, and then in the end, you give birth to, what's the name? A girl. So would they be calling that girl Paul? No, that's very, very, very wrong. And that's one thing about what? About your arrow function. It allows for what? Strict what's the name? Strict function scope. You understand? It does not allow you what? Just declare your function without initializing it. And that's very much important. So that's exactly what it basically does. Now, that's not about arrow function. That's not about arrow function. So arrow function is saying that what you want things like that. Now, as you can see, there's something we call object destructuring. Now, I want everybody to understand all of this ECMAScript. You can also still go ahead and read about it. Now, when we talk about destructuring, so destructuring assignment makes it easy to assign array values and object values to variables. So, for instance, we said const person equals to what? First name John, last name person, age 50, eye color blue. Now, if you destructure it, what are you just saying here? You're saying let first name and age equals to what? Person. Now, we'll copy this and then we'll try and see what it gives to us in the code now. So you see what it's going to say. Now, if I save this up and then we check out our console. Oh, no, not that one, this one. Okay, we still have this error here because we tried to call it out before. So now to be good. Now I'm going to say console.log person, and then let's see what we have. Good. So let's check it out. This thing. All right, good. So now, one thing about object destructuring. Okay, let me talk about destructuring in details rather than talking about object structuring first. Let's check it out. Okay, good. Now I want to talk about the structuring in JavaScript. Good. What does the structuring mean? Now, structuring is a modern JavaScript syntax that allows you to unpack values from an array or properties from an object into distinct variables. So what does it say? I'm going to take certain objects or certain values in an array, right, into another what? Array or distinct variables. So what am I saying? So let's check this object structuring. Now, in this particular object, what do you have? You have what? User equals to what? Name, which is what? Alice, then age of what? 25. Now, I can now go ahead and say, okay, now let us now destructure just name and age to make sure that what? We are not going to get their values. Now, if I say const name and age equals to user, if I console log user, what am I going to have? I'm going to have what? Alice, name Alice, and what? 25. Rather than saying, okay, instead of saying name dot user, sorry, user dot name and user dot age. You know, when we're trying to get objects, we're saying user dot something. Now, instead of saying that, I can just go ahead and say what? Const name equals to. Now, if I say, if I try to print them out, what am I going to have? I'm going to have name of Alice and age of 25. Now, I can access them directly. That's what the structuring. You understand it now? That's basically what the structuring. And also, I can what? Rename variables. Assign a property to a variable with a different name using a colon. Now, that's one thing about what? The structuring. Now, it's similar to what? Arrays. Now, I'm going to explain some things too. Trying to see if there is something we can talk about apart from this. Now, let's talk about array destructuring. So, when we talk about array destructuring, we're talking about unpacking elements. You understand? Now, I'm looking for a very easy way of saying this. For instance, you have const colors equals to what? Red, green, and blue, right? Now, I can try to say, okay, I want to get the first and the second. Now, what has just happened here is going to get from the what? Zero, what's the name? Index, and the first index, I'm going to do what? Red and green. You understand it now? Let's do it and let's see what we have. So now I can have, let me remove this object structuring first. I can have const fruits equals to what? So let's have mango. I'm gonna have guava. We're gonna have let's say pineapple. But let's just have apple. Good. Now let's now say I want to structure them, making sure that what I have a particular part of them and I just have access to their value or their properties immediately. What am I going to do? I can say const, then use them as an array. I can say first, or let's just say 0 and first. Now, what does this mean? This means that what? I'm basically trying to get, oh God. Can we create signal? Okay, good. Now, what this now means is that I'm basically trying to get what's the name? The 0 and the first index of that particular array. Now, how will I not get it? All I have to do is increase to what? Fruits. Now, if I say console.log fruits, right? Or I even try to use whatever it is I just used here. What will happen now is that I will now have access to what? Mango and guava. Now, let us Let me look for another example that mathematically shows this. Isn't it? Okay, good. I think the reason why we will not have direct access to it, again, see, they are using what's the name? They are using okay, I think we can still have access to it, but they are using front end, and I don't want to go ahead and start using the DOM to explain this. But let me go ahead and console.log 0. So you see what I'm trying to say. So if I say console.log 0 now, what are we going to have? Check it out. What do you have? Mango. You understand? If I say console.log first, what are we going to have now? We're going to have what? Guava. Now, what have I just done? I've destructured it, right? Let me rephrase. Let me start again. Mustina is looking at me as if, Jesus, what's this guy doing? I'm going to start again so you see it. Now, I'm saying const what? That's what I'm talking about destructuring first. Destructuring. Now, when we talk about destructuring, let me explain what destructuring is. Destructuring is saying that I'm taking part of a particular object or an array, right? And I'm trying to what? Destructure it to make selection easier for me later. Basically, what it's saying. Again, let me read it out. Let me read out for you here. It's saying what? Unpacking values from an array of properties into distinct variables. Now, it makes it what? More cleaner, more readable, and reduces the need for repetitive index or dot notation access. So instead of me saying, oh, I want to get the value of first name, and I'm saying object dot first name every single time, dot first name, dot first name, dot first name, dot first name. I just need to destructure into a new array, or even the old array, but was a cleaner way. So what allows us to access whatever it is I destructured. Do you understand it? Similarly for arrays, right? Instead of using index of 0, index of 1, index of 2, index of 3 every single time, destructure it and then access those indexes. Do you get it now? That is basically what your destructuring is saying. Now, for instance, I'm saying I want to destructure objects, right? So let's start with arrays. I don't want to start with objects. Objects are going to be a little bit confusing. Let's start with arrays. I can say const what? Fruits equals to what? So we're going to have first one, mango. Let's have next one to be guava. Let's have the next one to be apple. Let's have the last one to be what? Pine. Apple. Now, sorry, this is a mistake. I'm not supposed to have this. Now, one thing about your object is that for you to access this thing, how do you access it? I have to say console.log roots, right? Then this 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, up to infinity, right? Now, it is changing this when it comes to structuring, saying that I don't have to access anything by using their indexes. I can easily go ahead and destructure it. I can have const, create a new array, and I can have what? So let's say first, second, third, and what? Fourth. You understand it now? Then equals to what? So I can now have what? Fruits. Make sure that it's equals to this particular fruit here. So you can destructure it. Now, all I have to do is say console.log first. And I'm going to have what? Mango. Not fruit, then 0. No, just what you destructured. Now, this one is now what? Automatically saying is the index of 0, index of 1, 2, 3. 0, 1, 2, 3. If I put what? Third. Now, what am I going to have? I'm going to have what? Pineapple. So if you check it out now, what do I have? Oh, I have apple. 0, 1, 2. 0, 1, 2. Okay. So if I put fourth now, I should have pineapple. Do you understand it now? Now that is array destructuring. And why is it useful? I just explained it. reduces that repetitive indexing every single time. 0, 1, 2, it reduces for you. Now, there are different ways in which you destructure. You have array destructuring, then also what we call advanced feature, the rest pattern. This rest pattern is very much important. So one thing about rest pattern is that all you have to do is what, select the first one, and then what, you can add destructure. So we're going to talk about rest pattern also, but I want you to understand what that particular array destructuring is. Do we understand it? Is it clear to us? Before moving to object destructuring. All right. So now that is that about that. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue with object destructuring. So you see it. Now, object destructuring is just similar to what array destructuring, which we've done before. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and copy some of these things again. Again, because of time, I'm just going to copy it and bring it, not this. Let's check here. Okay, good. Now, let me copy this again and bring it down here. So, oh, okay. Very good. Now I'm going to remove this so that we can write it again. Now we have a particular object or world, a person, John Doe, age of 50, eye color of blue. Now let us destructure all of these things so that we can have access to them later. So for instance, I can say const, then I can have what, first name, right? Last name, I can have age, I can have eye color, then equals to what, the person. Now, as you can see, because it's an object, what did I use? Because I'm curly braces, right? But when I was trying to structure the array, what did I use? Square brackets. So you need to you need to put into consideration those things. If we are trying to destructure what's the name? An object, use your angle the angle brackets. No, not angle brackets. Curly braces. If you're trying to structure your array, use your what? Your square brackets. Now that is that about your object. Now if I say console.log first name, right? What I'm going to have now is going to be what? It's going to be the first name, which is John, right? Now, but before I had to do what? Person dot first name. But now I just use first name. I don't need to do person dot first name again. It reduces repetitiveness. Do you get it now? Now that is that about what? Your destructuring. Now there is also what we know as what? Your rest patterns. Rest patterns, right? Now your rest patterns is a very effective way of destructuring. Now what your rest pattern basically does is that it now allows you to take from a particular array into another array by just destructuring. We did splice before, right? Now your rest pattern is like splice, but a much more simpler way. Now, for instance, let's say I want to have another object of let's say okay, let's say I want to have another array of nuts, right? So I can say, okay, const nuts equals to what? This. Then in the first one, I'm gonna have no, don't let me say nuts. Let me see what type of fruit is a okay, let's have I don't know types of some of these fruits, but let's have apple has seed now. Pineapple has seeds. I'm sure pineapple has seeds. Do they? No, they don't have seeds. Mango has seeds, yes. Guava has seeds. Now, orange has seeds. Now, good. Let us say seed. Seed fruits. Now, what do I want to do? I want to go ahead and add I'm going to remove pineapple from there so that we're going to have Now, what I want to do, I want to go ahead and what add create seed fruits. Then because of this is already fruits already, I will add it to it also. Now I'm gonna add what orange, right? What other seed fruits do we have? Pear, very good. Did I get it? Pear. Is it correct? I think it's correct. I don't know. Let's check it. Or let's change it to avocado. Now, I cannot go ahead and what use REST patterns to bring in these fruits inside. How do I do it? Dot, dot, dot. Fruits. That's all. Now, if I say console.log seed fruits, check what you have. Check what you're gonna have now. You're not gonna have what orange, avocado, mango, guava, and what apple. Now, what did I do? I did not go ahead and say, oh, I want to have I want to like create all of these things again. Since they already exist here, I destructured them into a new array. Do you understand now? That is what your REST patterns is going to do for you. REST patterns consist of just use your 3 dots. Automatically, it will allow you to destructure those patterns to another array. Do you guys see that? That's what your REST pattern will do for you. Similarly, you can also use your REST patterns in objects. So I can say, oh, I want to have additional I'm trying to look for how this works. I want to have additional functionality in this place. I can easily say, let me check for an example here. So let's check for REST patterns. Very good. Now, look at this now. What do we have? You have name, right? The name. Okay, you know what? Let me just go ahead and have let me create another thing. You know what? Let me remove this. Now, I'm just going to do this, and I'm going to say dot, 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 person. Then let's check this out and let's see what we have that's already declared. I actually made a mistake here. Okay, no, let me do this. Let me change it. Person has already declared. Let's look for another way. Okay, don't worry. It's not the best way to do it. So now let us try and have okay, let me use the example here. Let me just use the example. Sometimes examples are very, should I say, very expensive. Thinking of them is so now we have, for instance, you have const name. Then what did what they did here is that what they destructured the others. So let me show you the first thing here. So now trying to look for a way to structure all of these things. Okay, let's just have something else. So I'm just gonna have the same thing that I did here, right? So let's have first name, comma, then 3. Now I can have something similar. I'm just gonna have first name, then I'm gonna have last name. Trying to see how this works, but I'm not really sure. Not really sure about. Yeah, exactly. It's not gonna work. It's not gonna work that way. Okay. I think it still needs me to add something like that. Something like this to it. I'm gonna have age. Let me check something out. Yeah, let's check it out. Let's see. Yeah. Yeah. So now that's exactly what you can see here now. What you have now, when I clicked on H, you know what? Let me just have others here instead of H. Now, when I said others here, so what did I do? I just structured it, the other one that is there. I said others, right? Now, when I destructured the others and I checked here, what do you have? Others, right? So now, check what you have out. It gave you other, what's the name? Other properties. You have last name, you have age, color, and then you have, okay, you have last name, eye color, and what? Age. You understand it now? So, of course, I can now say others dot what? Age, which is still something that I'm trying to run from. Others dot what? Age. So most of the times, what you need to do, as you can see, you have 50. Most of the times, what you need to do when you're destructuring objects is not to use the rest pattern. Because what happens is that not to use the rest parameter or rest pattern. Because what happens is that you now still have to go back and use the dot again. It's like repetition, tautology. So the best thing to do is just to what? Go ahead and have what? Your normal destructuring rather than what using rest patterns to destructure. Because in the end, you still have to come back to the dot. Get. But one part where rest patterns work the most is in what? In arrays. So I think you should be able to understand your rest pattern things now. Is it clear to you? Is it clear to you? Christina, are you sure it's clear? Mr. Victory, you came late. But is it clear to you? Yes. What about Mr. Samuel? All right. So just take your time, take 5 minutes, relax, write these things, and then we'll be back to talk about the last thing, which is the modules. So we'll talk about modules, and then that'll be all for today.